Hey everyone, I'm Mike.
And I'm Dan. And today we're talking about those special people in our lives who are there to help us when we need it most.
Yeah, we all need people like that. And for me, one example is my mom. Especially when I was a kid, I wouldn't usually give myself quite enough time to finish big projects, and that would really stress my mom out. And because she's so planful and organized, so she would jump in and help me cutting and pasting and doing all those things to get those projects done on time. So thanks, Mom.
Wow, your mom is a hero.
Yeah.
We all need those special people in our lives, and I think Jesus is the perfect example of what that person could be like. Let's watch today's God story and see what that looks like.
What did the left eye say to the right eye? Between us, something smells. Hey everyone, it's Alyssa. Welcome to today's God story. So a couple weeks ago, my coworker was telling me that his daughter was really sick, and suddenly she was like, oh, I'm gonna throw up, and then it all came out, and what ended up happening is he ended up catching all of it in his hands so that it wouldn't get all over her. So I don't know about you, but when he told me this, I was super grossed out, and it got me thinking, how much does a dad have to love his daughter to be willing to catch vomit in his hands? But that reminds me of Jesus' love. When we read stories about Jesus' life, we see how he was willing to get close to people that other people weren't willing to get close to. He did that with people who are actually sick, but also with people who society might have thought weren't good enough. And we're gonna read one of those stories today. That leads me to today's big idea. Jesus came to help the sick. Today, we're starting a new series called Love. Now, when we hear that God is love, it's easy to wonder, well, what does love look like? And we get the answer to that in the life of Jesus. Jesus shows us God's love in amazing ways. One of those ways is how he helps the sick. So today's story is from the book of Mark, chapter 2, verses 13 to 17. Jesus had just started his ministry, and he had been healing people, and then now he was by the Sea of Galilee, where a big crowd was there, and he was gonna teach them. He probably went there so that there would be space for everyone to hear them. And while he was there, he came across a man named Levi who was sitting at a tax collector's booth. So Levi was a tax collector, and you might be wondering, what is a tax collector? So first of all, taxes are money that we pay to the government that they use to help take care of us, whether that's building roads or operating schools or hospitals, things like that. So Levi collected taxes, but in Jesus' time, sometimes tax collectors collected a little bit more than they were supposed to and kept that for themselves. So people saw tax collectors as thieves, and so Levi wouldn't have been very liked by people. So you can imagine it would have been crazy surprising for Jesus to go up to someone like Levi and say, come follow me. But what people would have been even more surprised by is that Levi actually stood up and he did follow Jesus. But then it gets even more surprising, and Jesus actually goes to Levi's house for dinner. And at this dinner, other tax collectors are there, other people who would have been considered sinners were eating with Jesus. All of these people were part of the big crowd that had been following Jesus. Now there were some teachers of the law called Pharisees who saw this, and they did not like that Jesus was eating with these sinners. So they went up to Jesus' disciples and said, hey, what's up? Why is Jesus eating with these people? Jesus happened to overhear them, and so let's read what he does next. Jesus heard that, so he said to them, those who are healthy don't need a doctor. Sick people do. I have not come to get those who think they are right with God to follow me. I have come to get sinners to follow me. So what did Jesus mean by that? Jesus was comparing sick people who needed a doctor to people who were sinners needing a rescuer. And by a rescuer, that means Jesus. Jesus wasn't just saying that he came to help people who are actually sick, like they were throwing up or they had a fever, but he was saying that he came for people who knew they weren't perfect, knew that they messed up, and knew that they needed someone to save them. What we all need is Jesus, and that brings me back to today's big idea. Jesus came to help the sick. Jesus came to help all of us who know that we need him, and that's really great news for all of us. I'm so glad we got to share this story today, and I will catch you next time.
Quickly, turn to the person next to you.
Discuss the following question.
Question time. In today's God story, Jesus said that healthy people don't need a doctor, only sick people do, and that he came for the sick. What did he mean by that?
Jesus said he came to have sinners follow him. And to help us understand what he meant, he used this example of healthy people not needing a doctor, while it's the sick people who do.
Yeah, that's the perfect example, right? It's still relevant for us today. If we're sick, we probably need to see a doctor.
Absolutely. So Dan, you looked at some stories of friends who had shared how Jesus helped them when they needed him. So let's check it out.
Have you ever thought about what it would be like to hang out with Jesus? To grab a pizza with him, or watch a hockey game, or just ask him about stuff that's going on in your life? There are so many examples in the Bible where Jesus was hanging out with his friends and helping and healing people. He healed people who couldn't walk, who were blind, people who were at death's door. And sometimes we wonder, does that still happen today? Does God hear our prayers and respond to them? We looked at a few stories our friends shared with us previously, and this is what we found.
Acrobatics became my life. And then I fell ill. Over a very short period of time, I started developing these incredible back spasms, shoulders, neck, overwhelming fatigue, and just constant pain. Whether I was moving or not, I was in pain. The only relief that we found was I would get cortisone shots directly into the spasms, 10 to 14, lining my spine and my neck. And that in itself was painful, but as an 11-year-old kid, I was begging for these cortisone shots.
And I understand that the doctors said you may end up in a wheelchair.
Yeah, but I believed that God wouldn't give me this talent and then allow me to fall into this pit of nothingness. I believed that God would let me dance and do my acrobatics again. Time started running out. I couldn't train. I was in so much pain, and time came to where it was the day before. I still wasn't able to train. I had that moment of doubt of, should I withdraw? With my parents, they said, no, we're gonna pray. We're going to trust God. And the morning of the Nationals, I woke up as supple as can be. I was able to do the strength tricks, the contortionists, I was able to do the splits, I was able to do everything as if I wasn't sick.
It took some time, but God healed Lisa completely after years of suffering from a severe illness. And now she lives an active lifestyle, and she's grateful for everything God has given to her. We also checked in with Anna, who was involved in a freak accident while she was playing darts with her friends.
We started to play darts, but the problem was our dartboard was a little bit higher than where you would usually set it up. And so when we would throw the darts, one person would actually have to go and retrieve them, but we'd kind of have to jump up a little bit and knock them down. Unfortunately, one of the times that we went to go knock darts down, I was looking up as my friend knocked some darts down, and one had hit my eye. So my mom ended up taking me to the doctor. They did a lot more tests. I realized that the infection in my eye was quite bad because the dart was dirty, and I had also cleanly cut through my lens. And the fact that my lens was cut in half meant I couldn't see. I would be blind permanently. I was going to go in for emergency surgery, but even with the success of that surgery, if it was successful, the most I would see is shapes and colors. The day of surgery, I started to panic a little bit. So I turned to my mom and said, "You need to do something. Open the Bible, flip to something, read me something." And so she grabbed the Bible and asked, "What do you want me to read?" And I looked at her angrily and said, "Just flip it open, point to something, I don't care." So she did literally just that. She flipped the Bible open, closed her eyes, and pointed to a verse, and it landed on a verse in Psalm 146 that says, "He gives sight to the blind." The next day, the doctor came by to remove my patch. As he pulled my patch off, he asked me to close my left eye and got right up in my face and asked, could I see him? I actually looked past him and started to read the poster behind him on the wall.
The doctors told Anna that even after surgery, she wouldn't regain sight in her eye. But she actually recovered fully, and she sees perfectly well with both eyes now.
She has one green eye and one blue eye, which is this crazy reminder of what God did for her. But sometimes our struggles look a little bit different. Here's what Mackenzie had to face.
They found out that I had this disease called multiple endocrine neoplasia type 1. The short form for it is MEN1, and that means that one of my chromosomes is cut in half, and it allows me to grow tumors on 3 parts of my body. So my pancreas, my pituitary gland, and my parathyroids. One of my parathyroids was taken out. That's why I have the scar on my neck, because there was a tumor on it. And I also have a tumor on my pituitary gland, but it's very tiny. So the fear is that I would get a tumor on my pancreas. I've read stories and I've seen videos of people who have had the tumor on their pancreas and it's become cancerous and it's very dangerous, yeah.
So going through this time, how has that helped you learn to trust God more?
I think because of the people there, just being around me, showing God's love, and also knowing that I am able to pray and talk to God. If I'm afraid, if I get this sudden urge, I'm just afraid and I just don't know what to do with it, I can pray and I know that He'll always be there, and I know that He's always by my side, and I can tell Him and talk to Him about anything.
Mackenzie knows that God is with her. She experienced Him coming through for her during the surgery. But here's what I love about her story. Mackenzie still has a tumor on her pituitary gland, and the illness can cause more tumors. Despite that, she knows that God is always with her, and that Jesus came for each and every one of us.
Jesus helps in many different ways. We saw with Lisa, she was fully healed after trusting God for a miracle. Then Anna had mind-blowing results after her surgery. And Mackenzie has peace knowing she can fully trust God with whatever might come in the future.
And this is why it's so important to remember that Jesus came to help the sick. And whether that's physical illness, or stress and anxiety, or bad habits that we need to break, nothing is too big or too complicated for Jesus to handle.
That's right.
Let's break into our small groups and see what this looks like in our own lives.